coming to our events while they were writing their books. We launched Lisa's book. This is such a joy to be able to host this launch. Lindsay's here to introduce her debut novel, All the Impossible Things. It's an extraordinary middle grade novel about a girl navigating the foster care system in search of where she belongs. Catherine Applegate called it wise and wondrous, truly a novel to cherish, and we really couldn't agree more. Joining her on stage is Lisa Lackey, author of the very wonderful A Good Kind of Trouble. I'd like to remind you, for those of you who haven't been here, we have books for sale at the front of the store. We're going to do a signing under the chalkboard over there. And Lindsay's going to tell you more about the book drive. She's asking that if you buy another book to donate to a kid in foster care, you enter a raffle. Did I get that right? You did. I got that right. While I have you here, I'm going to tell you about our amazing lineup this fall. Really, we have extraordinary people coming here. Rebecca Wells, Megan Whalen-Turner, Elizabeth Farmer, Victoria Schwab, Rick Ryan, Henry Winkler, Lynn Oliver, Karamo Brown, find them on our website, Alan Gratz, Stephanie Lucianovic, Nick Stone, Andy Griffiths, Tui Sutherland, Marissa Meyer, Shannon Messenger, Owen Colfer. I'm going to stop there. But really amazing group of people. But back to today, can I have a huge round of applause for Lindsay, Lisa, and Ruby?
You really think about climbing stairs in these shoes.
You should come next to each.
Sort of our flats.
Your experience. All right, before we start, can I do a spinio? Yeah. Has anybody read the book? Do you know what spinio is?
Oh,
all right. So spinio is one of the characters in the books. You take a selfie video and show off what's behind you. So as I pan you all, you need to like shout and wave and stuff. I will not fall. Okay, here we go. Ooh, good spinio. All right. So you don't have to spin too much.
You're so great. This is so fun, right? So as Angela said, Lindsay and I have known each other for a while now, and we are having our debut year the same year. So it's kind of wild and crazy. So I have a whole bunch of questions for her. I read her book in a couple of days and I adored it. If you haven't had the chance to read it yet, please buy it immediately. But I had a ton of questions. So someone in the audience is gonna have to do me a favor and like give me the time sign if it's like, okay, really, we want to get to the cupcakes, stop talking. But here we are, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, one of the things I was struck by, as I'm sure many of you were, is the magic that's in the book. We see red storms from the very beginning, and so I was curious about that, of where that idea came from. Was it always right in the beginning in your head when you started writing the book?
Well, one of the very first scenes that I wrote for this book, I got the idea for this book about 10 years ago, because my aunt and my uncle had fostered and then adopted a little girl, and so that was sort of, I had a character in my head, this little girl who had a big imagination, and then when that happened in my life personally, those two things, this character that I'd been kind of floating around, came together. But the magic of the story really didn't happen until I actually sat down to write. And the very first scene that I wrote of this book is the opening chapter. It's the very first chapter, and it's almost exactly the same as when I just sat down to write it. But as I was writing, the one thing that's changed is that the first line, "The wind came from her mother," that line has changed, because as I was writing it, it was storming outside, and this was happening with this little girl. She's getting kicked out of a foster home, and I thought, what is going on with this wind? And then it just sort of dawned on me near the end of the chapter, oh, it's coming from her. And so then I, in the revision, went back and put the magic in more intentionally in that chapter. But the magic just sort of came to me. But then once it clicked, it just made sense to keep it as a central part of the book.
And I'm a little nervous about asking this because I don't want to give anything away, but her magic is not, and is magic the way that I should be referring to it? Should I be saying something else?
No, I think it's magic.
Okay, but so her magic is not the only magic that we see. And so I was curious about that. Was that something that surprised you as you were writing it, that to find that other people possibly have magic as well?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to talk about that. Give it away. Yes, there is an element of magic that another character has, and that was kind of inspired by my love of Madeleine L'Engle. I just really wanted to put that element, not the magic, but the element into the book because of her. And so that the magic just sort of grew out of that. Something funny is happening to those lines. It's going to disappoint me.
It's magic. One of the fantastic characters in your book is the animal, Tuck. And
Speaking Tuck.
loved Tuck. So can you tell us about Tuck a little bit, about where the idea came from to have this animal in the book, and why he took on such great importance, and also about his scar?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Twofold. So Tuck, when I was Tuck is a 400-pound tortoise that lives in the petting zoo. That's part of the foster family that Red goes to stay with has a petting zoo in the book. So Tuck is the 400-pound tortoise that lives there. This is one that is a prize tonight. This is a Tuck that can go home with somebody, just saying. And the idea for him came when I was in 5th grade. My parents took me to South Dakota, and on our way home from Mount Rushmore, we stopped at this giant reptile zoo thing, and there was this 20-year-old kid there that was wrestling alligators and playing with poisonous snakes, and it was all very impressive and frightening. But there was this exhibit of giant tortoises. There were just a couple of giant tortoises standing there, which are really boring to just look at initially because they were just standing there, not really moving. And my dad and I were sitting there just watching these giant tortoises, and all of a sudden, I love telling this story in elementary schools, all of a sudden the tortoise just went oof, and snot started pouring out of its nose, and it sneezed, and it was so disgusting. And I was, 10 or 11, and I clearly have never forgotten it. And so as I was writing this petting zoo, I just wanted some weird animals in it. So I was just sort of putting these weird animals in it. And then I saw this, answers your other question too. I saw one of those online videos of rescue animals, and there was a tortoise that somebody had stabbed it with a screwdriver. And it wasn't a giant tortoise, but it was a smaller tortoise. And it was just walking around the streets of Arizona or something. And it had this huge screwdriver sticking out of its back. And so they had rescued it and done surgery on it and all of that. And when I saw that, and then of course I had this memory, I was like, I need a tortoise in this book, and this horrible thing is going to have happened to it. And then it just all came together. So the tortoise Tuck in my book is a survivor of a screwdriver attack. And that I liked also the idea that Tuck had lived with pain, and that's one of the reasons he's important to Red, because she understands living with pain and losing your family and all of that. So they have an important friendship.
They do. And speaking of that, kind of sort of, because Red is dealing with heavy stuff. She has not had an easy childhood at all. And because of that, I thought that her character arc was an interesting one, because she's really hard at the beginning. And a lot of times in books, particularly in middle grade, I think a character will start off more fearful or softer, and they have to get a little bit harder because they have to grow up, and it seemed like this was a little bit of the opposite. Do you want to talk about that, or am I just way off base?
No, I guess that's true, but I never really thought about it. Yeah, I mean, it's a story about finding your family, and I think in YA, I feel like a lot of stories are about leaving the community that you're already a part of and becoming your own person. But in middle grade, it's more about finding your home and your place in a family. And so for Red, she's looking for a family that's outside of her own. And so she has to approach it with such a toughness just to survive, I think, and get to that point. So yeah, I don't know much more to say about that, but you're right, it is a softening.
Like she's wearing a shell.
It is.
Almost.
There's another reason she bonds with tortoises.
So clever. What about research? You talked about seeing the video of the tortoise, but you have several other animals that are part of the petting zoo. Obviously, Red is a foster in the foster care system, so I would imagine there was some research. Did you have to do quite a bit of it?
Well, I was lucky because my aunt and uncle had fostered and then adopted, so they were sort of my go-to. Especially, the book takes place in Colorado, so the Colorado foster care system, because every state has a little bit different laws, and it's just different a little bit everywhere you are. But so it was good to have that resource because it had been a fairly recent life experience for them. So most of my research really was my aunt. She read multiple drafts for me and told me when things weren't working. And then of course I did just I spent a lot of time on the internet and reading foster care stories. And one of the things I wanted to do was, because we all know like the horror stories with foster care, I feel like that's really a prevalent story if you're talking about kids in foster care. But I read and saw so many stories that were just amazing and heartwarming, and people just loving in a way that is so powerful. And I wanted to really celebrate that in this book too. Red does have a difficult journey in the foster care system, but that's not the focus of this story, because I wanted to celebrate all the people out there who are doing such amazing work and loving kids so well. So that was a big part of that. But then some of the fun research I got to do was about the animals. So like I knew I wanted to put a tortoise in there. I had no idea what tortoises eat. So I watched lots and lots of YouTube videos of tortoises eating bananas. And then it was funny because my copy editor in the notes, she was like, I can't find anything to back up that tortoises eat bananas. And she sent me like Wikipedia articles. And I was like, no, YouTube. There's so many tortoises eating bananas on YouTube. So that was kind of fun. That was fun research.
Oh, it's so funny because I was like, this would be the next question. I've even numbered it that way. So I thought it was really cool that in the story, her foster mother, that she leaves, it's a bad situation that she's leaving when we first meet her, and she just calls her the mom, which I thought was, I don't know, like it was kind of chilling in a way, even though like we have all these positive connotations with mothers, but the mom just, it's like a horror story. But it made me think about how that title can be bestowed on someone, and someone gets to just be a mom, sometimes within the foster system or in other areas. And I don't know, I was just curious about your choice to do that and have that woman remain nameless.
Well, I think part of that was less symbolism and more just practicality for Red, that she's been in so many different homes that she doesn't necessarily retain who she's staying with. And I read another book, I believe it was Forever or a Long, Long Time by Kayla Carter. It's a middle grade foster care story. And that foster child, the main character, calls the foster parents the person. She's my person. Because she was so tired of bestowing the title of mom onto someone and then having that hurt them. And so I sort of adopted that with Red a little bit, except it was the opposite. She was calling her the mom as almost like a mockery, because she was refusing to let anyone play that role in her life. And so that was just her way of being strong. Somebody send in your impossible things. It's so cool. I see it like floating around behind me. Woohoo.
It's really cool.
No, Christine. This is Christine back here. She did this amazing job. Like,
let's see.
I want to go with that. Sorry. The mom, is her first foster mom, but then Celine, the foster mom that's there throughout the story, when she introduces herself to Red, she says, "Call me Celine," and gives her permission to not have her in that mother role right away. So that was an intentional choice. Yeah.
I love her.
I love Celine.
Sorry, Mom. So, I saw the Lays being passed. I got one, and Red's friend is Hawaiian, and I thought that was an interesting choice, mainly because I'm like, we don't really, maybe it's just the books I read, but I'm like, this is a culture that I don't actually see that often in books, and so I was curious of how did you think of having him be Hawaiian?
Well, two things. One, the day that I gave myself permission to write this story, because I had the idea like 10 years ago, but I didn't give myself permission to start writing it for a long time. And I was working on a YA novel that was truly terrible, but I was determined to finish it. But the day I gave myself permission to write this story, my husband and I were on a flight to Hawaii for vacation, and I read Rebecca Stead's When You Reach Me on the flight, and I put it down and I turned to my husband and I said, I need to write my middle grade. I just need to do that now. So part of it, then of course, that same trip, we got to the airport and then we were on a shuttle bus going somewhere, and the driver of the shuttle bus was this man named Marvin, who was like the life of the party. I just loved him immediately, and I was like, okay, I need to put that guy as a kid in my book. And the character Marvin in my book is what I imagine that guy must just be like. I only saw him for like 15 minutes in the whole world, and I'll never see him again probably. But if any of you know someone named Marvin in Hawaii who drives a shuttle bus, please tell them this character is owed to him.
Yeah, kid him in this book.
Yeah. So there was that aspect, but also the Hawaiian culture has such a beautiful concept of family and of ohana, and their idea is that your ohana is like whoever is in your circle. It's not just blood, and that was such an important thing for Red. I wanted her to meet a family that would bring her in as a family, but also it was like their culture. It wasn't just you're a foster kid, so we're gonna love you. It was like, no, this is what we believe. We love people. So that feeling of ohana was really something I wanted to capture too. That's why Morgan ended up being in the story.
See, if one of my characters was Hawaiian, it would be so that I could go to Hawaii and write off Kepler.
Well, yeah, that may or may not have happened as well. Actually, I think we wrote it. It may happen in the future.
Okay.
Book tour in Hawaii.
No, I loved that whole concept of ohana, and I was like, oh, this is so beautiful, and it ties in so great. So thanks. You're so smart. So I have the question of, was this the first book you wrote? But you just mentioned you were working on a YA, so obviously not. But I'm curious if your other books and the books that you plan on writing, do you think that they will be similar in like tackling somewhat tough themes and trying to kind of lighten the load for readers out there? Is that something that you feel compelled to do?
Well, I don't think I'll ever be Captain Underpants kind of writer. So I do think I'll probably have pretty serious things in most of my books. That's just kind of who I am. My YA books, I can't even, and I won't even tell you what they're about because they were so bad. But my next book is dealing with, it's realistic fiction and with a little bit of magic like this one. It is dealing with death because middle grade, lighthearted, no problem. But hopefully in a positive way. Nobody's ever going to want to read anything I write again. Thank you.
Kids need those books.
Yeah. So I think I probably will. But this book, there's so much fun in it. I hope there's fun in it. That's why the animals were in it. There's no animals in my next book yet. Maybe that's the problem. I need to put a giant tortoise or zebra in there or something. I'll figure it out.
So you said your next book will have a little bit of magic in it, which I'm very happy to hear that. Do you think that that's something that your books will probably always have, just a little touch?
Well, I don't want to use words like always or never in my writing. I want to be one of those writers that long after I'm dead, someone comes into the bookstore and says, I want to read Lindsay Lackey. And they say, well, do you want her adult fiction, her nonfiction? Do you want her poetry? You know, I want to be one of those writers that's all over the bookstore. So I think for the foreseeable future, there's going to be magic in my books. That's just sort of how I see the world too. But I'm not going to say always.
I don't want to ask that one yet. Okay. What has been the most surprising thing on your publishing journey?
I think the fact that I'm having it at all is still one of the really surprising things to me. I was just telling you this in the back, but I feel like I wrote this book for me. And so I knew it was middle grade, like I knew that marketing-wise, that's probably where it would fit, but I really just wrote a book that I wanted to read and that I loved. And so the fact that it has been received so generously by adults has been wonderful. It's adults that tell you you're going to get published, not kids. So it's really great that adults love my book and published my book, and I'm really appreciative. But then the last 2 weeks I've been on book tour and seen kids for the first time. And when I started to get kid readers reporting to me how much they loved it, one of my friends who's in the audience, I won't point them out because I don't want to embarrass his daughter, but he emailed me because she read my book and said that I was her favorite author now, and that was like the best thing ever.
Wait, I have to interject here because I got an email saying that my daughter is coming. It was to a group of us. My daughter is coming because she wants to see her favorite author. And it's not you, was what I thought. I'm not sure why that was wanted to be said.
Why did you get that extra email?
But I knew when I got it who the person was. I was like, well, that's really nice for her.
Well, I'm going to take it. I'm really funny. But the last 2 weeks, having kids come up to me and tell me how much they loved it, that has, I think, been, I was hoping for that, but you never quite know. And so I've loved that. That's been a great surprise.
I was curious if you yourself keep a journal. We see Red with her journal, so I was curious if you do.
When I was Red's age, I kept a journal. And now I try to keep a journal. I have like 6 that are about a quarter of the way full. And then I feel like this compulsive need to finish them. So I just don't journal at all because there's all these, it overwhelms me. You know, like it's half empty and I should finish it before I start this new pretty one. And then I don't journal for like 3 years and then I start the new pretty one. And then I find the old one and I feel guilty. So I go back to that one. So if anybody ever goes through my journals after I die, they'll be like, what is wrong with this woman? She couldn't keep anything straight. So yeah, I have a box full of journals. I journaled pretty regularly, probably to my early 20s. And then I need to journal ever since my early 20s because life got hard, you know, and that's when I quit. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's why I write.
Well, I don't know if you all know this, but Lindsay has fantastic lettering skills. So do you use that in your journaling?
No. Nobody can read my journals, even if they wanted to. They're terrible chicken scratch.
Tell us about Red's name. She is Red, but that is not her given name.
Yeah.
What's the significance of the fact that she does not go by her given name?
Well, her name is Ruby, and then her mom calls her Red. And I don't want to spoil it. Her mom calls her Red for a reason. And it's really a quick moment in the book. The reason, it's kind of a heartbreaking moment. And it was actually one of the first things I knew about Red's mom was the reason she called her daughter Red instead of Ruby. And it's just like a sentence in the book. But to me, it's like the most heartbreaking moment of the book. So I don't know if anyone catches it or not, but to me, I'm like, every time. Yeah, so that was like a key insight into Red's mom's character for me, the reason she calls her Red.
I love her grandmother. I wanted to meet her. You know, I thought she was so cool. I've skipped around a lot, so I messed myself up a little bit. Do you want to talk? And I know that there's some writers here. Do you want to talk a little bit about your process at all? I know people are always curious about that.
Sure, if you want to hear about it. My process is like my journaling. It's not consistent. And I mostly feel guilty, and that's how things get done. So it's great. I tend to, well, the reason I wrote like 5 YA books before I wrote this one is because I thought that I loved drafting and I hated revising. And so I would write a first draft and then I would mostly get done with it. And then I would think, oh, it sounds so hard to revise this book. I'll just write another one instead. And so then I was never going to get published that way. And then with this book, I was like, all right, this is the one I think that I'm going to try and get published. So I should really maybe work on my revision skills. And then I realized I loved revising so much. So my drafting is really this slow, painful process. I don't like a blank page. I like having something to work with. And the revision process I can do for like 12 hours and not eat and be really stinky, but I love it. So yeah, I'm not really sure if that is talking about my process or not, but for all of you who are like plotters and outliners and you love drafting, could we maybe work together? Because I'm really bad at the drafting. I've been working on my next book for like 1.5 years and I think I have 5 pages. So that's pretty normal for me. I also write, when I am in the drafting phase, I write a ton, like 20,000 words, and then I throw it all away. I don't even go back to revise, I just throw it all away. And I've done that 4 times on my second book so far. I think I did it 2 or 3 times on this one, except for the first chapter, which stayed the same. Yeah, and really, it's not good. Don't do what I do. Do the opposite of what I do if you want to be a successful writer. It's not very productive or good for my mental health.
Okay, I have some lightning round questions.
Oh, good.
I didn't share this one. And I might think of some more as we go along. So this is really just for me, but Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Yeah. I know. I can't do it. My husband's right here. I answered that. Can I say yes? It's hard.
Well, accept yes.
Okay. I have more Star Wars T-shirts than I do Lord of the Rings T-shirts. I don't know if that says anything.
I don't know if that's fair, but I think there probably just are more Star Wars T-shirts in the world. But someone should fix that. Bagel or donut?
Donut. Although I probably eat more bagels. But my heart wants donuts.
Comedy or tragedy?
Comedy. I'm thinking Shakespeare. I prefer his comedies.
Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
Yeah. I knew the answer.
Yes. All the way.
I won't ask drafting or revising because I think I know now. Morning hen or night owl?
Night owl, but preferably sleep all day. No, I wish I was a morning person, but I tend to be more of a night person.
Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
This is the only correct answer.
Waffles.
Yes.
I knew we were
Point this out.
twins.
Yeah, twins. We have pictures.
That's good proof.
Fantasy or contemporary?
Right now I would say contemporary. It sort of just depends on where I am in life. I read a lot of both.
Spiders or snakes?
Ooh. As in to touch or to look at, or to kill. To run away from. I think snakes are less frightening to me than spiders.
Witches or mermaids?
Witches or mermaids? Can I say Ursula because she's both? No, she's not a mermaid, I guess. She's an octopus thing.
But she feels like both.
I do like her. She was a pretty cool villain.
Yes.
And Little Mermaid was my favorite.
And in some ways, I think that kind of answers the question for us.
The question to all of these, or the answer to all of these is yes. Both.
Okay, this is the last one. Castle or cottage?
Cottage. I want a little riding cottage. Also, I love castles. Both. I want to live in a castle but have my riding cottage in England. Maybe on the wall. No? Okay. That's what
I like that, actually. I want to visit the castle.
You can visit my castles and then borrow my riding cottage. Okay. See?
So I could probably go on. I loved this book so much. It was not impossible to love. But I definitely want to hear from you all questions that you might have for Lindsay.
While you're thinking about your questions, I'm sure you need to think about it. I do want to say we are doing, Stacey, what is the name of that organization?
Kinship Adoptive Foster Parent Association.
Kinship Adoptive Foster Parent Association. Okay, great. That is a local organization here in the Bay Area, and so we are doing this reading drive for them today. So if you buy a book for the Kinship Adoptive Foster Parent Organization today, you can just, any book in the store. I mean, I encourage you to buy mine, of course, but any book in the store, honestly. And if you, there's a box at the checkout, so you can just donate it directly to a foster child, and then tomorrow we're going to actually donate them to the organization. So, but if you do that, if you want to buy a book for a foster kid today, Christy in the bright dress with the lei has tickets. So tell her that you've done, you can either tell her you're planning to do it or just tell her you've done it, either way, and she'll give you a ticket. And then at the end of this, we're going to do a drawing, and Tuck is going to go home with someone who buys a book for a foster kid today. Isn't he cute? You want him to go home. And also, I have posters to give away for a game that we're going to play later. So let me show you the poster. You still thinking about your questions? Because that's why I'm doing this.
It was funny because I didn't realize that you could actually see Red's face until I saw the book blown up.
Yeah, it's funny because you can't see it on the book as well, but you can sort of see her face a little bit. And I think she looks like Audrey, my friend from my church, in the unicorn. I think you look like the Red on my book. All right, okay, I'm ready. I'm done showing things off.
Yes, Amy.
So you said that you wanted to show a positive example of foster care. Things are not always rosy for Red.
For sure.
Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to include some of the Downs in this particular family, and if that was around the first draft or like
Some of the downs that happen within the Groove family. So she asked why I chose to put some not so sunny elements into this story of Red's current foster family in the book. Partly, to write a compelling story. Otherwise it would be over on the third chapter. But also the issue that arises for a person in the story is something that my aunt, who fostered and adopted, is a survivor of. And so I just thought, I put a lot of my aunt in this story, honestly. I should probably give her some royalties because I just pretty much stole her life. I didn't steal my cousin's life at all, but I pretty much stole my aunt's life. So yeah, so that was part of it too. There's a lot in this book that is true to my life, and to my experiences or to the people around me. And they always say, is it Anne Lamott who says, if people didn't want you to write about them, they should have behaved better? Everyone in my life has behaved just fine. That has nothing to do with it, but I do steal things from people in my life all the time, so.
when in the process did you come up with the idea of the impossible things with the notebook?
Oh, that's a good question.
And that's kind of I'm only halfway through the book, but that is a theme in the story.
Yeah, that's a big thing. She asked, when did I come up with the idea for impossible things? That's a great question. I was writing a story about a girl in foster care who had some magic wind, And then I woke up one morning and the phrase "all the impossible things" was in my head. And I just knew that was the title of the book. And I felt very lucky because titling things is really hard. And so once I had the title, I thought, but why? Why am I going to call it this? Now I have to work that in. And then it occurred to me, well, if it's all the impossible things, Red probably collects impossible things. Well, how would you do that? So then it just sort of spitballed. So it was like probably the second draft that the impossible things came into it. And then the actual journal itself that she keeps throughout the novel was the hardest part for me to write. That's the part that I did a massive revision before I queried it, and then I got revised and resubmit. That's R&R's back. And agents were like, I don't understand the journal. So I did another massive revision trying to figure out the origin story of the journal. And then I signed with my agent. She was like, I love it, but I don't understand the journal. And so I had to do another revision with the journal and that was the revision where I finally, when the origin story of it came from Red's grandmother, that journal, once that was in place, it just was smooth sailing. But so yeah, that was more than what you asked, but I wanted to talk about it.
So some of the passages read so beautifully. I just read them, and I feel like the language is just eloquent and poetic. And I wonder, do you have background as a poet? Does this all just come easy and naturally to you, or do you labor over these words?
When I started writing this one, I actually had the intentional goal of I wanted to write something beautiful because I had just read Jandy Nelson's I'll Give You the Sun. And when I put that book down, I was like, oh, I want to write something that makes other people feel like I feel right now. Just like it's so beautiful it hurts. So I don't know that I achieved that, but I really did want to write something lyrical. So I said I wrote this